This is Tehachapi. Sit back and relax as Key, Corey, Greg, and Ashley talk about what's happening in and around Tehachapi.
It's Tehachapi time. Key Budge, Greg Garrett, Ashley Whitmore today. Thank you both for joining me.
Yeah, my pleasure, Key.
Today we have the pleasure of having Brandon Wood from Stratolaunch from Mojave. Brandon, welcome to Tehachapi.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
This is something that Greg and I have talked about for the last couple of years. So the podcast has been around for 3.5 years. We kicked off in March of 2020. And this is one of the companies, Greg says, I want to make sure that we get on the podcast at some point. And it wasn't until I bumped into Kate Squires at one of our recent meetings. And Kate and I said, we got to make this happen. So she made it happen very quickly. So, thanks to Kate if she's listening. But this has been long overdue.
It's exciting to be here. We've got a lot of things going on at Stratolaunch and happy to share.
All right. Well, let's talk about Stratolaunch. So, Greg, you have aviation background in aerospace. You've worked in that business prior to being here as a government employee. I'm a lifetime government employee. Ashley, do you have any aerospace? Well, you are our airport manager.
Do you have any aerospace?
So,
well, you're the airport manager. Well, I hope so.
Okay.
A little bit.
But I'm the guy that, as I mentioned to Brandon, I got to watch your big plane, fly a couple of years ago on TV. That's as technical as I get when we're talking about
He's
the
seen
big
the
plane.
big plane fly, Brandon.
That's it.
Yeah.
It is a big plane.
It is
that is very descriptive of it, yes.
Speak in layman's terms here.
So
please.
for me, I'm gonna ask you questions based on the guy who doesn't know anything.
Fair enough.
And we've got two from different perspectives from different businesses that'll be able to ask you some more interesting questions. And all of our engineer listeners and those that are in aviation and aerospace will probably enjoy the questions that you two have.
I think they're going to be super critical of this podcast. Now the pressure's on.
The pressure is on for you guys to bring it.
For sure.
Okay.
So, Brandon, why don't we start? What is this? Well, you're located in the Mojave Spaceport, right? Mm-hmm. The company. Mm-hmm. What is Stratolaunch? What do you do?
So Stratolaunch is a company that is developing a hypersonic test bed. So it's a reusable airplane that we launch from our large carrier aircraft that we call Rock.
So the Rock was previously Stratolaunch company that was organized and built by the Paul Allen Group out of Microsoft.
Right.
So you purchased the airplane, renamed it, or now it's called the Rock, and you kind of brought a couple things together. So now you have a platform to launch your hypersonic testing beds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fair to maybe rewind a little bit. So Stratolaunch was created by Paul Allen, as you said, co-founder of Microsoft, and that was in 2011. And he hired Scaled Composites, located in Mojave, to design and build the Rock carrier aircraft for them. And they did that and first flew in 2019. And unfortunately, Paul Allen passed away right around that same time frame. And that's when the company was sold to our current owners.
Right. And so you're on the Mojave Airport. You have 300 some odd employees.
We do.
By the way, they're hiring across the board?
We are, yes.
Okay. All right.
Make sure we figure out how people can apply before this podcast ends. Or now.
Stratolaunch.com. Yeah, there's a lot of openings on our career page.
Ashley,
certainly.
You're not available. You're not going anywhere. We got work to do.
Let me give you my card, Ashley.
I already got it out front.
Fair enough.
So you're an aviation testing company.
Yes.
You own the world's largest airplane.
Mm-hmm.
The listeners may or may not have seen it fly, but it was designed and built by Britain's Scaled Composites. Several, I think 4 747 engines. 6 of them. Okay. Yep. And it's the largest airplane in the world, and it's a heavy lift airplane.
Yes. If you haven't seen a picture of it, it's worth a couple minutes to talk about what it looks like. It is a very different kind of airplane. It is 385 feet from wingtip to wingtip, which is wider than the span of a football field. That's mm-hmm. right. Mm-hmm. So it's a very big wing, but it has 2 fuselages, and each of those fuselages is the same length as a 747. And so this is a big airplane that has the space in the center to carry things and to drop things or launch things. And so it can carry big things or it can carry heavy things. And it was originally designed to carry a rocket that would launch a satellite into space.
And so one of the fuselages houses the pilot, the co-pilot, the engineers. Mm-hmm. What's the other house? Anything, or is it just voided space that is light?
It is
Test equipment, maybe.
It is actually, well, so we have two cabins, one on the left, one on the right. The flight crew is in the right-hand cabin, the pilot, co-pilot, and the flight engineer. And the left cabin has some of our avionics components, but really it's pretty empty. Normally a fuselage is where you put the things that go in the airplane.
First class, business class, coach, all that.
But that's not what the fuselages are for this airplane. The payload goes in the center of the wing between the fuselages.
Right.
When I've seen pictures, for me, it looks like a catamaran kind of a.
That's a good description.
You know, where you've got like the two that, as you mentioned, the fuselage are like the two pontoons, and with that wingspan that crosses, it's just it's very impressive, and I'm sure it rolls out. What kind of a speed does it have? You mentioned 6 747 engines, but this thing is built to carry heavy loads.
Yes, it is what I would call a point design, in that it was designed to carry heavy things up into the sky. So it does have 6 engines that we pulled from a 747, and
it goes to like 40, 50,000 feet. So it gets away from the gravity, if you will.
Right. It's designed to lift heavy things. That's really what it was designed to do. And so it doesn't necessarily go fast or far as much as carry really heavy things. And it is, the largest airplane by wingspan and the most powerful airplane by thrust. So 6 747 engines and a wingspan that's 3.
And hard to taxi. Maybe not hard to taxi. Let me preface that a little bit. I was talking to Tim Reed, the CEO of the Mojave Spaceport, a couple weeks ago, and he said whenever you take Stratolaunch out to fly, it can only taxi on the runway. Mostly, right? It can't use the taxiways a lot. So the operations at the airport are very controlled because you have to back taxi on the runway and this and that. It's a beast, Key. It's a beast.
Now, with that design, it's designed to get up to, obviously to carry the load, but is it to get to a higher elevation, getting closer to space for some
altitude.
of these, or altitude for... See, all right. Like I said, I'm the guy I stayed at a Holiday Inn once, but doesn't mean that I know what I'm talking about.
So the original purpose was to air launch a rocket that would go into space, and yes, to carry it, but it's not necessarily to get it to a high altitude or to a high speed. Really, it's to get to a different launch location. So one of the benefits of air launch is to disassociate or be able to launch a rocket under different weather conditions than maybe the airport has. So it gives you operational flexibility.
Maybe a different latitude and longitude. That's why Cape Canaveral is down in South Florida, right? Because you want to get closer to the equator. Depends on where you want to go. Yeah. Do you want the satellite to go with the equator or the poles? Different. But, you're looking at me like, wow.
Wow. Much deeper conversations that.
No, I'm just.
You're pulling back some going. This was some of your fun years that
those
you
are
had.
fun times. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I have a question. You talk about how originally the purpose was to carry, a rocket, and all we keep hearing here is heavy things. Mm-hmm. Am I asking too much to ask what these heavy things are? Now,
well, so
that's a secret. If we told
I didn't know. I didn't know if we were going to have to edit this, cut this question out.
No. So ironically, what we're doing now is not that heavy. The Talon A vehicle that we're flying now or launching from the rock carrier aircraft is not that heavy. It's actually relatively small, but the rock airplane gives us that flexibility to grow into bigger airplanes or bigger launch systems or heavier launch systems. And so we have a tremendous capability in rock, and we're also acquiring another airplane, a 747. And so those two airplanes together will make a fleet of carrier vehicles, carrier aircraft that we can launch a variety of hypersonic test
right
flights.
in 18 miles from the city of Tehachapi, in the city of Tehachapi, we pride ourselves in supporting these industries. Mm-hmm. So the employees that work day and night, literally 24/7, a lot of the times, they live and play, and their kids are educated here, all that kind of stuff. So that's the role that we play. We're this very, very important economic role of supporting that industry, and we take a lot of pride in that.
And it's been that way for for decades. So what we're trying to do with the Talon A vehicle is in many respects similar to the X-15 program that NASA and the Air Force had in the 1950s and 60s. And those people that supported the X-15 lived in Tehachapi.
Yeah.
They flew at Edwards. Just like it's been for 80 years, people of Tehachapi have supported the aerospace industry. Very key portions of the aerospace industry located, of course, at Edwards or at NASA Armstrong or in Mojave.
Right, for sure. So let's talk. Did you call it the Talon? Is that the name of the?
We call our hypersonic testbed Talon A.
Talon A as an apple. And so, Ashley, you asked, what is this? What are we carrying around? What does Talon A do? So we talk about hypersonic.
Right.
What is hypersonic for the listener that may not know? You know, every once in a while you hear that term, but what does that mean?
That was my question.
Yeah, it's a term that's getting more visibility recently because of the Russian use of a hypersonic missile in the Ukraine, or actually a series of missiles that they've fired. But hypersonic is generally flying faster than 5 times the speed of sound, or Mach 5. And so that's, call it 6 or 7 times faster than an airliner normally flies. And it's really fast. When you go to that speed, the air impacts the vehicle, heats up the vehicle, which also heats up the air. And so it's a different kind of analysis and different kind of design method needed to design and operate a vehicle at those speeds. Hence, they call it hypersonic instead of subsonic or supersonic.
Seems like you'd want to go out into space for the majority of your mission and then pop back into the atmosphere.
Yeah, and
because of the heat.
Right. So hypersonic boost glide vehicles do exactly that. They sit on top of a rocket, they get launched out into space, and then come back in and maneuver or operate in the hypersonic flight regime while gliding.
And so I'm, obviously wouldn't get into any details here, but I'm sure you have some DoD, Department of Defense contracts. You're testing things for customers that have a bigger goal than just a test bed, right? They have a design or something in mind that they're thinking about.
Right. We're a commercial entity that supports DoD customers across the board, from the DARPA or Missile Defense Agency or the Air Force Research Lab or the Navy. There's a variety of customers that we're communicating with and planning to fly their payloads at hypersonic speeds such that they can demonstrate that capability, demonstrate the technology, learn things about how their payloads are operating in that hypersonic environment.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just ready for you as the you're like one of the co-professors of this. I'm not even going to call you a co-host.
No.
You're going back into another world.
I'm just faking it. I quickly Googled all this.
I'm buying it. I'm buying it, Greg. Okay.
He's got his Stratolaunch for Dummies book sitting right there.
Yeah, right. Let me flip to page Talon A.
Yeah. So what is the mission of Stratolaunch?
So the mission is to provide that kind of hypersonic flight test services for primarily the government, the U.S. government, for the DoD or commercial entities or academic institutions that want to fly hypersonically. Going back to the X-15 now, almost 60 years ago, they were routinely flying that fast, and we haven't had a vehicle since then, since it last flew in, I think it was 68. We haven't had a vehicle that's routinely flown hypersonically. And so that's what Talon A is. It's getting back to routinely flying that fast. And so Talon A is a unmanned, reusable, air-launched hypersonic testbed. And so we take off from Mojave with the rock carrier aircraft. We carry the Talon A vehicle in the center of between the fuselages, below that big wing. We fly it out over the coast and launch it. It's a rocket propelled, so it's a liquid rocket engine that propels it up to Mach 6.
Have you ever been have you flown in the Rock?
No, only a couple of people have.
Yeah, you got to sneak in.
Yeah.
You got to sneak in.
People have
I know how to
people
do that,
have wanted
by the
to, yeah.
Yeah, I know how
But
to do
no, we keep the flight crew pretty small.
Yeah, for sure.
But,
you know what's really cool is the United States of America. I mean, we're sitting here talking to Brandon about this project. It's at a public airport where you have highly qualified administrators, engineers, technicians, flight crews. you're developing technology, working for a private company that is feeding information and technology into the military, if you will, to protect the United States and its allies. But you think about other countries like China and Russia, we hear about hypersonic in the news, right, from time to time. I can guarantee you they are, hidden away in these dark areas, and they're not part of that social fabric, and they're not as free thinkers, right? I'm thinking we're entrepreneurs, right? You guys are entrepreneurs on the Mojave Spaceport, and we're the ones that win because of people like you and your team.
Well,
it's a different business model.
It is a different business model. It was somebody that had resources, the money, and they said, "I want to create a product." To
Capitalism, quite frankly, at the end of the day.
And they did. That's right.
Yeah. So it's I'm just really proud of what you guys do at the Mojave Spaceport, Edwards, China Lake. Kern County is a special place.
It really is. And a third of our employees live in Tehachapi in this area. Aerospace is key, as you all know.
Yeah. And I'm sure your payroll is giant, right? 300 people?
It
there's a giant benefit to that, right? There are people that are employed, they're paying taxes, and it goes right back into the system. It's part of what makes us really healthy as
What's
a community.
great about our community, too, though, is being so close and already having all these aerospace engineers up here and everything. A lot of our kids that are coming through, the Tehachapi school system are going right into those jobs.
That's right.
And a lot of people aren't exposed to that like the kids up here are. We've got the Build-A-Plane program at our airport.
That's
which
right.
The engineers out at Stratolaunch, all the different
NASA
places, they retire, and what do? They come and mentor these kids, so then they feed into your program and all the other programs. It's amazing what we have up here because of what's going on down there.
Yeah, and it's great for all those students to get that hands-on experience and that that experience building things and making things because those are the kind of people that we find is really successful in our line of work.
Who do we have to talk to get the Rock do a low pass here in Tehachapi on July 4th? It doesn't have to be low. You could be,
Aren't we talking
10,000 AGL?
We should
the mission can just swing wide.
I'd love
hey,
to
General Higer sends
right.
B2s, B52s, B1s.
I'll tell you.
F-22s all day long.
Even at 10,000 feet, it'll look really big.
Oh, guaranteed. Yeah, it will amaze you. Have either of you seen it fly?
Just on TV.
Just on TV.
Yeah. Just some videos.
Yeah, we flew it a couple of weeks ago. That was our 11th flight, and we did a test flight with our Talon A vehicle. Yeah. And we'll fly it again later this summer.
Yeah, and July 4th.
Over Tehachapi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Brandon, let me ask you about the Talon A. It's autonomous, so and you said reusable. So is that this considered a drone, or is this something different than what a drone is?
Well, I'm not sure what a definition of a drone would be, because there's from the small toys that you can buy in the
I start to
store
think about the military type.
So it's very similar to that. It's wedge shaped. It goes really fast. It's got these wings that are pretty narrow, but it's controlled by a flight computer. We have a pre-programmed trajectory that we figure out where we want it to fly, and we tell it where to fly, and it flies along that path and lands on a runway.
So you recover it at Mojave, Edwards? How does that work?
Eventually, we do plan to have it fly back to Mojave, but currently the plan for our reusable flights will be to land at Vandenberg Space Force Base, just right along the coast, because they have a large runway right next to the coast.
And I guess now with all the satellite controls, the pilot of that vehicle is located somewhere hundreds of miles away,
thousands of miles away. That's how we fight wars now sometimes.
There's different levels of control over drones and uncrewed vehicles. And in this case, it flies a pre-programmed trajectory. So we tell it where to fly and drop it, and it flies that trajectory. But we also have control over it in the sense of if it starts veering away, if it does unusual things that aren't planned, then we can actually terminate the vehicle.
Take the autopilot off?
Yes. Unfortunately, our only ability to terminate it is to destroy it. So we really want it to.
So has Talon flown yet or not?
We did a test of with our first vehicle that this is just a couple of weeks ago, where it was a separation test.
Drop test.
Yeah, it was a drop test. It did not go hypersonic. It went into the water. We dropped it over the ocean and it went into the water. But it was really important because it demonstrated that safe release and separation from the carrier aircraft. And so, one, we don't want to hurt the crew. We don't want to hurt the big airplane, rock. So we did a specific test just to make sure that our analysis.
And so right now you're testing the Talon A, but if there's a listener out there that has something they want to test, can they call you?
You bet.
Right. So you have this platform called the Rock, and you could,
Yeah, we have. We're talking with a variety of people about other payloads on Rock, but we're really focused on hypersonic payloads that would go on the Talon A vehicles.
Right. So you have a couple teams. You have the Rock team, and then you have the Talon A team, and they work together, of course, on this project. But it could be separate programs, separate projects. The list goes on and on and on. Yeah.
And then I saw on your website that you've got some future projects that are out there, and those are the Talon Plus and the space plane. Now, can you talk a little bit about those, or what the thought is and what you're looking for the next generation to be?
Well, as I said earlier, Talon A is relatively small compared to Rock. There's a lot of growth capability, a lot of lift and volume that we can put a larger vehicle underneath Rock and launch it. And so certainly larger hypersonic test beds are being evaluated, faster speeds, longer durations at hypersonic test conditions. And there's also that aspirational capability to develop a space plane or some orbital capability for a vehicle launch from Rock.
So I'm guessing the Rock was designed so that you don't have to modify it when the next customer comes along, because when you add the Talon, it's going to change the aerodynamics in a small way, probably because it's a small vehicle. But if you had something differently shaped, sized way, it could affect the Rock. And you don't want to be modifying that if you can help it. So the size, I'm sure, helps out a lot.
Yes, exactly right. So it's that spread 96 feet between the fuselages and 25 feet from the. It's that big volume in the center where you can drop unusually shaped things and not worry about it recontacting. And a lot of other aircraft don't have that. Well, all other aircraft don't have that kind of flexibility, and so that's what Rock provides.
Usually, they just open the back of a C-130 and push something out the back.
Even that's kind of that's kind of could be kind of scary, right?
Yeah, I've actually been a C-130 and did that. I didn't push it out, but I was there, chained in, and watched it go out the back.
And you were glad it didn't stop halfway.
Yeah, right. Everybody was very happy that it went out. It was over China Lake, actually.
Yeah, that's the greatness associated with Rock. You can drop anything and it just falls.
Yeah,
you don't have to worry about it.
As long as everything releases and not that one latch just keeps hanging on.
That's why you do testing.
Right, that's right.
Well, Brandon, what brought you into this industry? Let's look back to you and this young Brandon Wood, and now, I mean, here you are leading this charge out here in Mojave. But what brought you here?
Wow. So when I was young, when I was 6 or 7 or 8 years old, I decided I loved airplanes. I also decided I loved space flight and satellites. And those are two actually quite a bit different fields. They're different kind of skills, but I wanted to be an engineer, wanted to serve my country. I joined the Air Force, became an engineer within the Air Force, and I was a developmental acquisition officer, and did both satellite development and aircraft development along the way.
Where did you grow up? Midwest?
I grew up in a city not unlike Tehachapi, but it was in Utah, a small kind of an hour outside of Salt Lake. It had a glider port. I spent my weekends working at the glider port, towing around gliders and.
My son is in Cedar City right now, learning to be a helicopter pilot.
Yeah.
Now, have you spent any time at our glider port that we have?
I haven't. No, I haven't had the chance to fly
I think he's kind of
recently.
busy. I'm actually when you told me we inked Brandon, I thought, wow, you must have just said, oh, I got a dentist appointment, I got to run home or something. How did we carve out an hour of your time?
That was last week.
Yeah,
that's good. I'm happy and excited to be here. The Tehachapi area has been it's been wonderful for scaled and wonderful for Stratolaunch. The resources up here really help us hire people into those companies. because just a half hour away, we have all the things, amenities and community up here in Tehachapi.
Yeah. And actually, at our airport, we have lots of, not lots, but, more than a couple aviation-related companies that are setting up camp on our airport, providing assistance to, I'm not sure your company, but others doing certain things. And we really support that.
We absolutely do. And I know a lot of their comments for staying up here or being in the area are just because of the caliber of the workforce that they get from up here.
That's right. That's right. We hear that a lot. No. And again, you're hiring. So we want to make sure, if there's somebody out there, because hiring these days is a challenge.
It is.
For everybody. Mm-hmm. And it's safe to say you're hiring across the board, technicians, engineers. You're just keeping your eyes open, your ears, you're listening. And if you're interested, apply. There may be a spot for you.
You bet. We're always looking to hire great people, and as like you said, we are hiring across the board, shop technicians, system mechanics, electricians, engineering specialties, program management, the gambit of different skill sets.
Now, could somebody go in there entry level fabrication, those type of things?
Yeah, we have a number of people that joined. I'll say either at Scaled Composites or at Stratolaunch at a young age, right out of Tehachapi High, and they've been working in the industry for, I know, 25 years.
That's great. Awesome. Yep.
Yeah, right around the corner. It really is. And I've never set foot at the Mojave Air and Spaceport, so I need to do that.
What?
I've never been. I've
Maybe
driven past.
Need a remote podcast with Tim.
We could do that.
We could take this a road show and go interview. Well, Tim is next week. I think Tim Reed.
Yes.
Okay.
Is he coming here?
Yes.
We could go eat at the Voyager Cafe. They give you a tour. Maybe we get a tour of your place.
You bet.
Oh,
come on by.
See how that worked out?
Yeah, I like that. I like it.
Wasn't even planned either.
Well, Brandon, is there anything that we haven't talked about Stratolaunch that you think that you want to share, that you want to hit on, get that information out to the community?
It's an exciting time for the industry right now, for the segment of the industry that is the hypersonics. There's a lot of different things that are going on. There's a national imperative to create the capability that we are supporting, and we're just a small portion of that industry, of course. So a very exciting time. We've got a lot of different things going on. Some of the things we've talked about, some of the things I can't talk about, but there's a lot of growth potential, not only with the payloads on rock, but the company overall. And I just welcome anybody to take a look at our website if you're interested in a job. Exciting time within an exciting industry.
Yeah, I was going to mention. I'll just repeat that. I think the Stratolaunch company has a seriously bright future. What you're providing and offering to the aviation /space defense industry is quite remarkable, and to have a platform that you can transform into whatever the customer's needs might be, I think the Rock is really key. And your acquisition with the 747, which is part of the Virgin demise. Maybe.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, these industries, it's very competitive, and you never know, you've got the best team and the best team wins, and that's who you want to win, right? It's like high school sports. May the best team win. And your team are winners, and you're getting things done.
We are getting things done. Virgin Orbit, as you're referring to, unfortunately they did go through a bankruptcy process. A lot of great people and great ideas, but I guess the business didn't work out like they needed it to. But we're in the process of acquiring their 747, which they were using as a launch platform for their space launch vehicle, and so we are starting to create the plans to convert that into a hypersonic launch platform as well. It won't go hypersonic, but just like Rock, it'll carry the Talon A vehicles.
Another opportunity.
Yep.
Ashley, how can we make our runway longer and wider?
We can get rid of the 58
Yeah.
or down to Boulevard.
And the railroad track.
I like it. Let's do it. Yeah, Mojave is, it's got the big runway.
Mojave is a special place.
It really is. It's a very unusual place.
It's an old Marine base originally. Did you guys know that? Mm-hmm. It's a Marine training base for World War II.
I didn't know that.
Actually, I did know that. Tim told me that.
And then Dan Sabovich created a group of people at Mojave created a special district out of it.
Yep.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
He was growing. He was drying grapes, turning them into raisins to begin with to get that cash flow.
I did know that Mira Loma, out there at 60th West and J in Lancaster, which was the LA County Jail, that used to be a military flight, kind of a small operation.
Interesting.
Back there in World War II times.
Oh, yeah. My dad bought an Aranca Champ from a guy that was right out there, had a dirt field. Nice. Grand Champion. It was beautiful. He sold it, and the guy ground looped it on the way to his house.
No.
Broke our hearts. I'm like, are you
Tail draggers.
kidding me? Yeah.
All right, what's a ground loop? Am I breaking into the pilot's code here, and I shouldn't know something here?
Well, we'll have to.
Tell me off the air. Is that?
Yeah.
He had a little incident taxing.
Not my dad. The guy he sold it to.
Yeah. They're not healthy for airplanes.
When you're talking about hypersonic and these speeds, I flash to the movies, right? So that's what I can envision.
Yeah,
So
Maverick,
of
Top
course.
Gun.
Yeah, and him pushing the envelope and it heating, and I mean, so when you were talking about the Talon and the heat element and things, is that kind of portrayed in that movie where you're kind of watching him in his test flight before he gets sent back to the school to teach?
Yeah, that of course was Hollywood, but
Right.
but there was a lot of realism depicted there. Hypersonic flight, there's a wide regime within hypersonic. At the low end is Mach 5, and you could say at the high end is Mach 25, which is where the space shuttle re-entered from space. It re-entered at Mach 25. The vehicle depicted in Top Gun, I think it was Mach 10, and that's pretty aggressive, twice the speed of a Mach 5 vehicle, and so that's a very, very challenging thermal condition. And it's very hard to design a vehicle to operate in that environment. So
just that heating element that they try to depict,
it melts the thing away. It melts the airplane structure.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, thank God we've got brilliant people that are designing these things, because I wouldn't even have thought that you'd think that higher you get in space. My thought is it gets colder, and it's not an issue. But at that speed, just everything changes.
Everything gets really hot, and so you've got to design the vehicle around the thermal environment, the structure, and the propulsion system. And so, I'll say a normal airplane like a 747 or something like that, you've got an engine. You can put different engines onto an airliner, and it doesn't really change the design. But for a hypersonic vehicle, you have to design the engine around the airframe and around the structure itself. So it's all one kind of integrated system. So it's a challenging engineering path. It's not easy. Hence, that's why not many people are doing it.
And a lot of those technologies, they make their way into the private industry eventually.
They do.
Right? So what Brandon and his team are designing, it will make its way into the private industry at some point where the average Joe can use it in their daily life, maybe.
With the acquisition of this Virgin, was it a 747?
It is.
Okay. I flash to thinking about the space shuttle being transported, because I lived in the Antelope Valley, and I used to see things at the Skunk Works, and I remember seeing the space shuttle mounted and transported. Is that what we're talking about it doing, or is it a different kind of a way where the space shuttle sat on top and was shuttled?
Right. The NASA operated two 747s. They were called the shuttle carrier aircraft, and they put the space shuttle on the back of the 747 with special mechanical interface to move them from Edwards, where they landed, to Kennedy in Florida. But for the 747 that we're in the process of acquiring, we'll actually mount the Talon A vehicle underneath the wing. So it won't be on the top, but it'll be below the wing next to one of the inboard engines.
So very much kind of the way the Rock, that similar principle.
A little bit more conventional, but yes.
Yeah, underneath. And
so it falls, you release it, it falls right away, then we light the rocket motor and it accelerates and flies up.
That's exciting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for our tour.
Yeah. All right. So we'll get a hold of Kate.
Yep.
So Kate, if you're listening, just know that the email and the phone call are coming, and we're looking forward to that. So Brandon, anything else? Maybe we didn't. I know I asked you this, but anything else we haven't touched on yet?
No, I don't think so. Appreciate it.
Covered a lot.
Yeah, I mean, technically, it's super advanced, and to try to capture this in 30 minutes, you can almost not do it. We're actually just trying to grab something from 10,000 feet, if you will, and the listener can, on his commute, learn a little more about what's going on out at the Mojave Spaceport.
And they can apply for a job there and learn a lot more.
Yeah.
A lot of things going on around the area that you don't necessarily see, and I'm excited to be able to share a little bit about that.
Can't wait for the flyover.
Yeah.
Well,
Let's talk.
It's exciting. And so Stratolaunch.com, that's where all the job opportunities lie. And you can go and just a great visual website. You've got some great videos and photos, and you can look at all of the aircrafts that we've talked about in the podcast. They're all right there. And you can follow along. You even have a newsletter if you want to stay up to date on what's going on. Everything at Stratolaunch.com. So, Brandon, thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Ashley, Greg, anything?
No, I'm good.
No.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.
All right, folks, if you have a question based on this conversation, something that you'd like to ask Brandon, you can send it to us at media@TehachapiCityHall.com. We appreciate the time you spend with us, and we'll catch you again soon here on Tehachapod.
Tehachapod is a conversation about Tehachapi, featuring the community members who make this such a special place to call home. If you have a question or a thought you'd like to share, email media@TehachapiCityHall.com. Thank you to Gary Mazzola for sharing his song, This is Tehachapi.